In 2018, we had a new Halloween movie. I was there opening night in theaters. I thought it was pretty good, and the world responded big time as it made tons of money, becoming the biggest slasher box office wise in history. So, of course, we were going to get a sequel, and it was announced a while later that we were getting two sequels: Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. So I was excited for it. And then, of course, the pandemic happened and there was a delay. But eventually, arriving on Peacock and in theaters, we had Halloween Kills. Now, did I like it as much as Halloween 2018? Well, let's talk about it. Now, I have to preface, although I saw Halloween 2018 in theaters, Halloween Kills I actually saw on Peacock. So I have Peacock because I'm a huge WWE fan, and at this time you had to have Peacock to see all the pay-per-view events. So I watched it on Peacock, did not see it in theaters. So maybe that colors my reaction a little bit because I do think watching a movie in theaters for the first time does give a sort of halo effect to a degree. It can't make a bad movie good, but it can probably add about 20-30% of the overall experience and make you feel better about a movie than you would if you saw it at home. That said, to be honest, I saw Halloween 4 and 5 for the first time at home on AMC, the TV versions. The first time I saw the original Halloween was on AMC, the TV version. So I do have a history with the Halloween series of first seeing the movies on television. So I think for me, I'm okay with that. I've watched Halloween Kills now about 4 times, I would say, and on the latest rewatch, my opinion on the movie didn't really change, but I'm gonna get into specifics now. First, I'm gonna talk about what I like about the movie. Halloween Kills has fantastic death scenes. So, in terms of death scenes, I would say that Halloween 2018, for me at least, was pretty weak on death scenes. Nothing really stood out to me as an amazing death in Halloween 2018, but Halloween Kills is carnage candy. This is Michael Myers in complete badass demolition mode. I mean, Laurie trapping him in that fire trap, that really incompetent fire trap, proved to really piss off Michael Myers because when he gets out this fire and walks out the house, the entire fire department seemingly is there with a fire hose that apparently isn't as powerful as I would expect a fire hose to be. But that said, Michael walks right through that and goes straight John Wick on all the firemen, taking out the entire fire department. Michael's pissed off, and that sort of attitude from Michael kind of remains consistent throughout the movie, as mostly it's about his journey to get back to his home. He's going to travel across town and kill everybody in his way, and probably kill some people not in his way either, because he's really in a killing mode in this movie. Probably the most killing mode he's ever been in the entire franchise. But I'm going to get to why I don't necessarily love that in a few moments. But I just want to say, first of all, big shout out to the death scene. I'm a fan of the creativity behind some of the death scenes, and some people have described it as Michael painting his masterpiece. I get all that. And yeah, the movie has fun death scenes. So the rewatchability factor mostly comes from the death scenes, I would say. So shout out to that. The opening flashback. So, taking us back to the night he came home with the aftermath of part 1 within this canon. Of course, at the end of part 1, Loomis had shot him 6 times. So now Michael in the neighborhood in Haddonfield walking around. We have the local cops trying to hunt him down. We have this whole scene with Will Patton's character from the first movie. He's here, his younger self, and we're following him in the flashback as he accidentally shoots one of his fellow officers. And then we see Michael basically apprehended. We see an amazing physical depiction of Dr. Loomis. Now, look, I don't want to be a nitpicker here. I mean, that doesn't necessarily feel like something Loomis would say. I'm a little bit confused as to how he knows the cop's name. Did he kill again? That's kind of over the top, but remember, Loomis in the first movie is a little bit more restrained, I would say, a little bit more low key. He's not necessarily the shouting, yelling Loomis that we see in the sequels, which it kind of feels like that in this opening thing. But overall, big props to the creators, David Gordon Green, the cinematographer, and then just like the whole costume design, because Michael in this flashback, he really does look like Michael from the first movie. They really get it right. If you had that Michael in the other sequels, oh my God. I mean, it's just fantastic. They get the feel of that correct. I do think some people overhype the flashback. And what I mean is that you'll see comments about, man, I would love to see an entire movie just take place in the flashback. And the truth is we have that movie. It's called Halloween 2. So for those not familiar, you can watch The Night He Came Home continued with Michael Myers and Halloween 2. So I don't think we need a whole movie there, but I do appreciate that the flashback is an excellent way to open Halloween Kills. I was a big fan of that. Um, Michael being captured by the police, it is something that even going back to Halloween 2018, I'm not the biggest fan of Michael being captured by the police. I feel like there's something cool even about something mysterious, let's say, about the H2O timeline where Michael's been missing for 20 years. That's pretty kind of mysterious. The idea of Michael being in prison for 40 years, I know it makes sense. It's logical. It gives an actual backstory as to why Michael wouldn't have attacked Laurie in the last 40 years or came back to Haddonfield. But something about the events of part one don't seem as that ending of part one doesn't seem as interesting to me if, we're cutting to all those scenes of, can Michael be here? Can Michael be there? Where's, yeah, he's everywhere. And then just like thinking about, oh, well, he's right down the block about to get apprehended by the police. It doesn't hit the same, but that's okay. That's fine. Now, as much as I enjoy the flashback, when they cut back to the present, I feel like the movie does take a dip. I feel like the movie peaks with the flashback, and I'll go into some specific reasons why. But one thing with the flashback is that the focus is really on Will Patton's character. Now, if you remember from Halloween 2018, Will Patton's character, to my knowledge, was stabbed in the throat and then ran over by a car. So he is actually dead, but then he's alive in this one. He's a great actor, so I welcome him in the sequels. But the whole thing with him being like, I'm gonna be the one to take out Michael, and then the flashback, it really doesn't go anywhere story wise. Like Will Patton's character doesn't really have an impact on the rest of the series. So even though I like the flashback, it doesn't really mean anything to the story. And then also in the flashback, you had Lonnie sort of being bullied and then having an encounter with Michael in the flashback. That doesn't really pay itself off either. We don't really see it's sort of off screen when Lonnie finally has a actual moment with Michael. So the characters in the flashback, they don't really pay themselves off in the movie or the rest of the trilogy. So I don't know if there was a huge purpose of the flashback. I guess is my main thing in terms of the overall story. Okay, that said, in the present, Haddonfield is stunned by the events of 2018 because Michael is back, the boogeyman is back, the legend is real, people are dead. Laurie's gone to the hospital to fix her wounds, and a mob is going to form to take out Michael. Now, this movie does bring back some legacy characters. We have Tommy Doyle, we have Nurse Miriam. Now, the thing with these legacy characters, also Lindsay Wallace also as well, and they all are friends now gathering at the bar, and they really do think about that incident from 40 years ago. Now, remember, this is all in the canon of the sequels not existing, so this is all based on the events of Halloween 1. In Halloween 1, Miriam was not necessarily in Haddonfield, so I guess now she was attacked by Michael Myers in part 1, sort of. So from there, has she decided to move to Haddonfield? And why? I guess I don't know. I mean, in this canon, did she still become Dr. Loomis's nurse? Did she still have that connection with Loomis? Maybe, because there's something she says, of course, that makes us suggest that. So maybe she does. But we're introduced to legacy characters, but again, they feel shoehorned into the story and they don't make much of an impact. I'm gonna start with Nurse Miriam. So she's there, and her moment to shine, I guess, is in the car when she says, "This is for Dr. Loomis," but then she basically disrespects Dr. Loomis's memory by realizing there's no bullets in the gun and getting killed. Why does she say that? Well, this movie doesn't have part 2 in the canon, so I don't know. I mean, I guess, like I said, maybe she did have a relationship with Dr. Loomis afterwards in this canon. And Michael did, in this canon, try to shoot Michael, or he shot Michael 6 times. So I guess he was trying to finish the job here. But her being included here didn't mean much at all. So I didn't really get it. With Lindsay Wallace, she has an excellent chase scene with Michael here. So I do have a lot of respect for that. I think that's very well done. And she actually gets away from Michael by finding a perfect hiding spot. But I will point to the fact that, again, she really doesn't factor into the rest of the trilogy. So I almost feel like, why not kill her off and give her a meaningful death scene if she wasn't really going to come back? She's makes basically a cameo in Halloween Ends, but her story doesn't really go anywhere, and she kind of disappears from this movie at that point. Um, I would say maybe give her a bigger character here. I would think that this movie is dying to have a really like central main character. One of the things with the characters in this movie is that it's really spread out. You're cutting from Lori to Lori's daughter to Allison, the mob, Michael randomly confronting people. So there's doesn't feel like there's a narrative central viewpoint here. It's spread out. We don't only get a main character. Lindsay Wallace could have been the main character here. You could have focused on her, had her follow her throughout the movie, give us a really great point of view character that we do have a legacy character attachment to. And then this chase scene with her would have meant a lot. Push it towards more towards the end of the movie. And you don't also have to kill her off, but if you're gonna give her that kind of screen time and everything like that, maybe do more with their character in the future movies or the future, whatever. Just do more with Lindsay Wallace. But they didn't do that. So that's fine. And then Tommy Doyle. Tommy Doyle, who we know that is played by Anthony Michael Hall, who you'll remember from The Breakfast Club and the Dead Zone TV show, and it's done a lot of great things over the years. I really like the actor a lot, but I don't know why, but I just hated Tommy Doyle in this movie. I hated the character. The character, for some reason, was so unlikable. I don't know if it was meant to be that way, like just them giving this guy no depth at all, and like I don't know. I didn't get on board. I mean, I'm happy that Paul Rudd didn't come back for this because I feel like Paul Rudd would have been a disservice to Paul Rudd to play this character. If they were going to beef up the role, make him more likable, more of a central viewpoint character, then yeah, give Paul Rudd top billing, and that'd have been fantastic. But I actually like Paul Rudd's Tommy Doyle from Halloween 6 way more than this. And I think that a likable Tommy Doyle would have actually made, again, the ending here more impactful, and Michael basically destroys him, would have had more emotional impact if we were on board with Tommy Doyle. But I feel like the audience mostly is not on board with him in this movie. We're given no reason to actually really like him a lot. Again, why isn't Lonnie the more focused on central legacy character here, since the flashback heavily featured Lonnie? It would make more narrative sense for Lonnie to be kind of the head of the mob, in my opinion, or be the spotlight character here. But either way, and then Laurie Strode herself is in the hospital most of the movie, which that was the cardinal sin of Halloween 2, was that Laurie was really in the background. The movie had no impact. She again has no impact here. I think one of the issues with being like, hey, we're doing Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, if you know you're doing a third one, then it's almost like this movie has to serve a transitional role. It doesn't. We know that probably Michael has to get a W here. Michael has to take a win here because you have to bridge itself to the third movie. So Michael can't die here, and really Laura can't die either. So there is a transitional feel here. I would have liked them to have done this movie and then announce a third movie afterwards, just so that coming into this, we're already now in the impression that nothing serious can really happen here. That's it. I didn't love the characters, and that's the honest truth. I feel like the characters here are weak, but let's talk about Michael himself. Now, we talked about earlier, this is Michael's masterpiece, his Mona Lisa. He's going to paint the town of Haddonfield with blood and paint a masterpiece. But I'm in the camp that this doesn't feel like Michael. So remember, this is canon with part 1 from 1978. Now, that was a version of Michael who spent all day stalking Annie, stalking Lori, running into people. He ran into Tommy Doyle at the school, but mostly was in the shadows throughout the entire movie. It seemed like the fun and joy for Michael was stalking his victims, playing with his food, and then finally going in for the kill. So that's the characterization of Michael within this timeline. Halloween 2018 started to get into the territory of Michael being sort of a randomly brutal killer. But Halloween Kills goes full-blown Michael becomes Jason. Now, a lot of Halloween fans love it, and I get it. I mean, what's cooler than Michael being a badass and taking out an entire fire department? But I guess I'm in that camp of like, this just doesn't feel like the Michael Myers that I'm accustomed to. I'm accustomed to him not being a Jason type killer. I'm accustomed to being more in the shadows, more sort of tactical in terms of how he approaches his victims, So we don't really get anything in this movie with Michael being tactical or plotting or in the background, the shadows, no real stalking scenes. he's really just a killing machine. He's basically just going house to house and murdering everybody in his sight, it seems. And again, the death scenes are well done, but killing random people, it's just there's no emotional impact there. There's nothing for us to hold on to. We don't care about half the characters he kills in this movie. And once you realize like there's really no plot to the movie, it's just that. It's just gonna be Michael going around killing people. You do kinda I don't know. There's just like there's no Loomis here. There's really no Laurie because you know, Laurie's in the hospital. The characters here feel more like Halloween Resurrection to me in terms of just sort of faceless characters who have no depth who we're seeing get killed. It has that sort of feel. It doesn't have a Jamie Lloyd or a Dr. Loomis or Rachel Carruthers or Laurie. So I don't know. Michael being John Wick against the fire department, that just seems like, I mean, the same guy from part one who when he finally confronts Laurie, they have a physical struggle. Like it seems like Michael's a Terminator here. So in this trilogy, Michael, any kind of physical confrontation with Laurie should be game over that quick with in terms of how strong he is. Um, so Michael looks amazing, and the performance is great, the mask is great, and again, he's a complete badass. But this kind of put the trilogy in a different light for me because I was like, okay, Halloween 2018 was maintaining some of this sort of suspenseful stalking Michael a little bit. It wasn't too much. There wasn't any really good chase scenes in Halloween 2018, but it still had the feel of Michael from part one. This one goes full blown, just absolute monster Michael. And I just have mixed feelings about that, although I respect that some people love it because it's carnage candy with Michael doing his thing, and I get that. Now, one of the things this movie is most well known for is the phrase "evil dies tonight." So we have to take a moment to talk about the mob here. Tommy Doyle basically recruits people from the town who are sick of this Michael Myers bullshit and are on board, even though I feel like some of them probably would just be like, "Nah, I'm good, man. I'm gonna go ahead and stay at home and catch some Netflix. You go ahead and go out hunting the town serial killer who's killed many people." But people are on board, and we get the mob storyline, and you get the impression this movie is trying to send a message because we get this hospital scene where they've targeted the wrong guy, somebody who physically, in no way or shape or form, could be confused by Michael Myers by anybody, is somehow confused by Michael Myers by an entire mob, and is basically chased to a point where he ends up dying. And this slows the movie down to a complete halt, freezes it in place, and I think probably is the weakest point of the entire trilogy. I think some people might argue that Dr. Sartain is the weak point of the trilogy, but I would say this mob thing is the weak point because the movie gets slow and dramatic, and you feel a message is being communicated to the audience, but it's the wrong movie to communicate that message, and the message is so heavy-handed and so out of place for a Halloween movie. It's just like, what in the world? I reviewed Halloween 4 a little while back, and I was just much more impressed with the mob story in Halloween 4 than the one here. This one feels absolutely ridiculous. And then when the innocent person dies, what's the lesson to be learned? Because the mob doesn't really stop there. They still go and hunt Michael. So I don't even within its own story, the whole thing doesn't really serve a purpose. When they do finally confront Michael, there's a very badass moment where Michael puts his mask back on, and the mob then does what they should do. They kick the shit out of Michael. They beat him up. They basically do to him what would kill any normal human being. But again, this trilogy, we're doing a have your Michael cake and eat it too, where Michael is not necessarily human, not necessarily supernatural, but he can do supernatural things, and he can take a huge amount of pain and still keep going. That's the Michael we have here. So Michael on the ground, Laurie makes some kind of speech, and then Michael is back at it. But we're to believe that this mob gets massacred in very much just them attacking Michael one-on-one, which that's not how they attack him the first time. So why would that be how they attack him the second time? The first time they gang up on him in a way where, as strong as Michael is, if people are coming at you in different directions, you just can't fight that off as one person. So why would their strategy then change? And they decide to do a gauntlet match where it's a one-on-one and Michael takes out everybody one-on-one. It's just a really stupid scene and makes no sense. Again, when he finally absolutely destroys Tommy Doyle, the reaction is almost laughing because you're like, what an idiot. Tommy, you're just sitting there watching everybody die one by one, and then you come in with your baseball bat thinking, hey, don't worry, I got it. I'm taking out Michael. I don't know. Stupid. Now, in terms of Laurie's daughter dying, well, Michael somehow gets in the house, comes up behind her and kills her. Was there a huge emotional impact? Not really. I think the bold move from here might have been actually to kill Allison. Allison, I think probably between the two, I think there's more of an emotional connection to Allison by the end of Halloween Kills. Laurie's daughter, I don't think ever necessarily crosses over into like where you see her as like a Rachel Carruthers, as like a final girl or anything like that. But um, I don't know. This movie asks a lot of questions that doesn't seem to go anywhere in terms of Michael. Is there a power in his house? Like how to get out of the house afterwards if the whole house is surrounded by police? I don't know, but the trilogy seems like it wasn't really well planned out because originally it wasn't meant to be a trilogy. It was going to be just Halloween 2018, and then I think there was a plan theoretically to have everything take place in one night, but then they did the time jump for Halloween Ends. So Halloween Kills ends up being a very much a transition movie. Now, do I like the movie? All that said, well, it's a mixed bag because I do like the deaths, and I think the movie does have a rewatchability. It's entertaining, but I don't like the characters. The movie has no plot. That's the bottom line. There's no story here. Just cutting to random Michael death scenes, and then you're following the mob story, but you end up just not caring about the mob story. Like I said, if you had made Lindsay Wallace a central character and followed her character, or if you would have made Tommy Doyle a little bit more likable and gave him more characterization, there could have been something with this mob. It needed a main character. This movie needed a central character. It's not enough that we're following back and forth from Laurie at the hospital to her daughter, some scenes with Allison. Nobody steps up and really takes that role. So it's really Michael's the main character. Michael's the man here. And I guess for me, it's not that less of Michael is better, but for me, the version of Michael and Halloween I like is more Michael in the shadows. I want a likable, strong main character like a Loomis or a Jamie Lloyd or a Laurie Strode, and I want Michael slowly doing a cat and mouse chase with him throughout the movie, stalking his victims, being suspenseful, being scary. There's no suspense in Halloween Kills. So, all that said, it's not the worst of the trilogy. That's gonna be a different video, but let me know what you think in the comments about Halloween Kills. Yes, there are definitely some huge positives, but for me, there are some huge negatives. And yeah, love to hear what you guys think. And until next time, you guys take care.